Hi, this is Tom Stone, and it's a great pleasure for me to welcome all of you to this first class on the Grief Relief Masterclass. You're going to be in for a treat this evening because we're going to have someone have a demo session, and you're going to see them transformed from suffering to joy, which is what we do. And it's quite remarkable because the normal path of grieving is something that usually takes months or years. And in fact, many people never get over their loss, their pain of loss. They carry it with them their whole life. And I was extremely fortunate to discover how to resolve the pain of grief, the pain of loss and grief. And the place where that started was when a deranged stranger came to my front door in 1993, pulled out a .44 caliber handgun and shot me in the chest. Now, 44 is a big gun. The bullet's about that big, and hunters use them for killing bears. And so it's a complete miracle that it didn't kill me. So it hit me right here, right next to the right nipple. Hit the lower edge of a rib and went down right between through the diaphragm, right between the two lobes of the liver, through the psoas muscle, hit a pelvic bone and lodged behind the fifth lumbar about that far from the spine. So complete miracle, it didn't kill me. In fact, the assistant surgeon, I had a big abdominal surgery to see what happened because the bullet went in here and it was showing on the x-rays down behind my fifth lumbar. And so while I was recovering, the assistant surgeon came in to visit me, and he said to me, he said, "Tom, you know, you're really rather lucky." And I said, "Excuse me, I just got shot in the chest. What are you talking about, lucky?" And he said, "Well," he said, "if you get shot in the chest at close range with a .44, he said, 1 in 100,000 people would survive such an attack, and 1 in a million would come out as unscathed as you did without losing any organs or limbs or anything like that." And I said, "Well, in that context, I can understand what you mean." So I had physical healing to do from 2 surgeries. I had 2 surgeries because they couldn't get the bullet out from the top. I've got this big zipper down my abdomen where, you know, they opened me up, but they couldn't get the bullet out that way. So a couple months later, I went back and they went in from the back and removed part of the fifth lumbar and managed to get the bullet out. So if you see me leaning like this, that's because I'm missing part of my fifth lumbar on the right side. In any case, that got rid of the pain that I was experiencing when they got the bullet out. And the biggest part of the healing was not the physical healing from the surgeries and the bullet wound. The biggest part of the healing I needed was from the post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, that I had as a result of this completely shocking attack. And I didn't believe the psychological dogma that PTSD is incurable. So I went about looking for some way to be able to heal myself. I figured that the psychological community must be missing something because they're all saying that that PTSD is incurable. And I didn't buy that. I thought they got to be missing something. So I started looking for what it was that they must be missing, because I figured if I could find it, I could heal myself, cure the PTSD. And it took me a while, but I did find it, and it turned out to be such an incredibly simple insight that I could see why people had missed it. And the insight is basically this. When we're very little, we all get emotionally overwhelmed many, many times. Happens for everybody, and nobody likes it. In fact, everybody hates it. And the consequence is that people become very good at getting as far away from the residual emotional pain that's stored in their body as they get as far away as possible. In fact, so far away that the energy, the sensation of the residual pain that's left over from the experience was just too much to process at the time. And so it's held in the body as a kind of residue of emotional pain. And people tend to hold on to it for like, the rest of their life if they don't learn what we do. So when I got this insight, I figured that it's going to take experimenting with doing the exact opposite of what we're deeply conditioned to do in order to be able to resolve this residual trauma. And so I figured, okay, I'll do some experimentation. So I got my courage up and I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. So I thought about the incident, the whole getting shot experience, and I could feel this terror still held in my chest. And so I said, okay, I'm going to allow myself to not only notice it, I'm going to allow myself to notice the strongest, most central, most powerful part of the sensation. So I started to do that. And the first thing I noticed was it didn't kill me to do that. And so I said, okay, I'll stick with it. So I just kept feeling it, noticing it. And amazingly enough, gradually the intensity of the experience started to soften, became less intense. I thought, oh, I might be onto something. So I got my courage up a little more and I got even closer to the residue of the feeling that was there. And what happened was that made it seem stronger. Now, it wasn't stronger. It was already softer, actually, less intense. But just by getting closer to it, it seems stronger. We call it doing the Google Maps thing. You're going to click in for a magnified view, closer view, and then it seems stronger. But I just kept focusing right into the center of the strongest part of the energy. And what happened was it softened a little more. So I did it again, got closer to it, softened some more, got closer to it, softened some more, kept doing that. And eventually I couldn't find it anymore. It was gone. So I figured, okay, I think I'm onto something. And what I did is I tried to provoke it by thinking about the whole incident again. And I didn't feel any terror. It was like, wow, this is really amazing. So okay, well, I'm going to be conservative. I'll sleep on it. I'll see what happens. I'll wake up in the morning. Now, I had all of the PTSD symptoms. I had nightmares, flashbacks, startle response, hypervigilant, everything. Shaking, my legs would shake at night in the bed. So, so I went to sleep, woke up in the morning, and the first thing I noticed was it was the first night in many, many months that I'd been working on this that I had not had a nightmare. It was like, no nightmares. So I thought about the whole incident again, no terror, no nightmares. I said, I'm onto something. So I started to share this with colleagues and friends and clients. And what I noticed was that you didn't have to be severely traumatized in order to get benefit from this, that it could be used to resolve all kinds of emotional stress. Now, the first time I worked with someone with grief was in New Zealand. I was in New Zealand giving trainings and seminars there. And there was a woman who took one of my trainings. She was a social worker. And toward the end of the second day of the training, it was a weekend seminar, she said, can this work for grief? And I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure it will. You got some grief? She said, yeah. So she started to cry and I guided her to not cry. And I didn't know who died, when the person had died, anything like that. But I started to guide her through the technique we're going to use tonight to resolve somebody's pain of grief, pain of loss. It's called the IN technique. And I started to guide her through it. She settled down. And eventually that painful feeling she was having that was making her cry, that subsided. And then she felt something in her throat. And so we went there, we resolved the energy that was in her throat. We call it a backup copy she had stored there. And what happened was when all the pain was gone, she smiled. And finally, she was finished with the process. And I said, can you tell us what happened? And she said, 22 years ago, I was driving my car and I had my young daughter with me, and we had a terrible accident, and my daughter died in the accident. And she said, I've been grieving for 22 years. I haven't been able to get over it. I'm a social worker. I've got access to all kinds of resources and tools and techniques, and nothing has worked. And this completely worked. And I said, well, how do you feel now? And she said, all I can feel is my love for my daughter. It was so beautiful. So after that, there were several other instances of helping people with grief. And what happened was that I was teaching seminars in Europe and living kind of temporarily living in Switzerland. And I got a phone call from my former wife, and she told me that my youngest daughter, who was 29 at the time, had died. And I was completely shocked. And she said, it's not only she died, but she died in a very tragic way. She committed suicide. She laid down in front of a train and just got run over. It was really quite tragic. So I was completely shocked. At first, I couldn't believe it. And fortunately, I'd already guided several people through the process of resolving their grief. So I knew exactly what to do for myself. So I immediately sat down. I did the in technique on the grief, pain, energy. It took me a while, I think over an hour, but I completely resolved the pain. And just like for the other clients that I'd helped, when the pain was gone, all I could feel was my love for my daughter. All the pain was completely gone. And then it stayed gone. It didn't come back. It's like that was all I needed to do, was that one session on myself to completely resolve the pain of grief. So I've helped tons of people resolve their pain of grief over the years now. And we're now training a group of coaches. They're taking a training program called, it's called Extraordinary Coach Training. And many of the people on this call are in that training, and many of the rest of you are friends of people who are in that training. And this is part of the training, is learning how to resolve grief, because, you know, we all know there's tons of millions of people dying from the pandemic, and the need for people to have support for the process of grieving and to be able to get over it and get on with their life is greater than ever. And of course, there are many other causes of death as well. But in any case, I want to have a whole army of people who are really good at this. And so this is part, for the people who are in the coach training, this is part of their training. For those of you who are here as visitors to the class, welcome to all of you. Thanks all of you for being here. So I have a little PowerPoint. What I'd like to do is to give you kind of an orientation. I'd like to explain the way the technique works and explain kind of the whole picture of how we're shifting our attention from the content of the emotion to the energy of the emotion. Most people, emotions have both content and energy. I'll have a slide with that on it. And, and most people focus on the content. And it's not particularly effective. I mean, we all know people who've gone to, you know, years of traditional therapy, talk therapy on content, and still have their problems. So it's not particularly effective. I had one Vietnam veteran who had been in the worst of it in Vietnam, in Khe Sanh, when he was like 19, and he'd been shot. He'd killed all kinds of Viet Cong. Many of his friends had died. He had PTSD for 43 years when I met him. And he'd been taking cognitive therapy at the VA for 17 years, and he still had his nightmares. So he came to see me, and I gave him one session. We found the 5 traumas that were causing his PTSD. We resolved them with the technique that I'm going to show you tonight, called the IN technique. That night, for the first time in 43 years, he had no nightmares, slept for 9 hours, which was like unheard of for him. I saw him about a year and a half later at some other event, asked him how his sleep was. He said, ever since that one session, no nightmares. So that's the difference between focusing on the energy versus focusing on the content. Resolving the energy is vastly more effective because it's what gives life to the content is the energy. When the energy is gone, the content flattens out, it's no issue. So the thing about the trauma of PTSD is it's very similar to the trauma of grief. Okay? They're both a very sort of tight knot or ball of energy inside, and they both have this, painful feeling, and people don't know how to get rid of it. The reason they don't know is because everyone gets into this deep habit of suppressing their emotions pre-verbally. You get into the habit of doing that before they even learn how to speak. And you get so good at it that they just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, not even realizing they're doing it, because they learned it, they didn't have any language for that. So they grow up and they get language, and pardon me, and they just keep suppressing their feelings. And so everyone accumulates more and more and more of these unresolved emotional energies. And the problem is that as they accumulate, these can definitely and do turn into chronic illnesses and all kinds of both physical and emotional problems. It's a huge study. It was done in Kaiser Permanente in San Diego some years back by Dr. Vincent Felitti, the head of preventive medicine there. They had over 17,000 people in the study, and it proved beyond a doubt that childhood traumas, let's call it for ACE study, was adverse childhood experiences, that the childhood traumas don't heal with time. Most things heal with time, but not trauma. And that's because people are doing their best to suppress it and keep it suppressed. So in any case, I want to show you this PowerPoint now. And let's take a look. Can you see that okay? Somebody raise your hands if you can see it okay. Okay, okay, good. So this is the Grief Relief Masterclass, and I just want to give you kind of a little bit more orientation so you really can understand what's happening here. So this is an overview of the training. We have 3 classes. Oops, I'm back up here. We have 3 classes. In this first class, I'm going to have you experience what's called pure awareness, which is your own awareness, your essential nature, the thing you use for experiencing everything. And then I'm going to show you a model of 2 kinds of emotional energy. It turns out that we have 2 different kinds of patterns of emotional energy. And so we have 2 techniques, main techniques for resolving them. When we have something like trauma, PTSD, or the pain of loss and grief, we usually use the technique called the in technique. And that's what we're going to be demonstrating and learning tonight. So we're going to have some orientation to the energies of emotions. And then I'm going to demonstrate the in technique on the energy of the pain of loss with someone who's here tonight. And I think we have several possible candidates. In class 2, which is going to be on the 29th, a few days from now, we'll do another demonstration, have a discussion. So you can see this is not just once, but you can see it twice and have an opportunity for more discussion. And on the 3rd class, which will be the following Monday, a week from tonight, we're going to deal with other kinds of associated emotional stresses. And that's because there are many other kinds of emotional stress that typically accompany grief. And, why not learn how to resolve some of those as well? So we're going to do that. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about something called the Extraordinary Emotional Freedom Masterclass, which is something you may want to consider if you want to get good at this. All right, so we're going to take a look at experiencing pure awareness. Now, this is a very simple exercise, and I want to have everyone have an opportunity to do this so you get a little bit of a taste of what pure awareness is. These techniques that we're using are called the pure awareness techniques, and that's because at the end of the technique, you are in a state where you're experiencing your awareness is being aware of your awareness. So there's nothing but awareness. So it's I'm going to guide you through this now. So everyone, go ahead and sit comfortably, and I'll explain it just a little bit and then guide you through it. The thoughts that occur in our mind are analogous to clouds occurring in the sky on a partly cloudy day. Here's a partly cloudy day, and you can see the clouds and you can see the sky. And the way you see the sky is you just look off to the side of the clouds, and there it is. It's in the background. It's there all the time. Similarly, we have our awareness, and we tend to have thoughts occur in our awareness, different kinds of thoughts that come and go. And then they come and then they fade away. So it's very similar. If we want to see what the awareness is, the silent background in which the thoughts are occurring, we just look off to the side of a thought and we notice the background of silence or emptiness that's there. So this is easiest to do with your eyes closed. So sit comfortably and close your eyes. And we'll take a few moments to just notice what you experience when you sit quietly with your eyes closed. Obviously, you hear sounds like the sound of my voice and other sounds. And you can feel your body sitting in the chair. You have thoughts coming and going in your mind. And as I just explained, these thoughts are occurring in a background of silence, a kind of emptiness. There's nothing there. And it has to be that way. We wouldn't be able to hear our thoughts if there was noise in the background. So in order to access the experience of your awareness, which is your essential nature, you just simply look off to the side of each thought as it occurs, and you notice the silent background in which the thoughts are occurring. And that silence is your own awareness. It's the very awareness you're using to experience the thoughts. So notice your thoughts coming and going. And when you're ready, pick one of them and just look off to the side of the thought and notice the background of silence in which it's occurring. Now, we don't normally do that. Normally, we keep ourselves very busy using our awareness to experience all our thoughts, images, sensations, perceptions, all kinds of stuff. But rarely do we allow our awareness to just experience itself. Unless we practice some form of effective meditation that really works, then maybe you do that. But for most people, the experience of awareness becoming aware of itself is somewhat unique. Now, as you're experiencing the quietness, another thought will come along and interrupt the quietness. So you won't have a long, extended period of time in the quietness because thoughts will come and disrupt that. But that's perfectly fine because we're not trying to get rid of thoughts. We're just noticing the background of silence in which the thoughts occur. So when a new thought comes, look off to the side of that thought and notice the silent background once again. And each time a new thought comes, look off to the side of the new thought, notice the background of silence again. And so it's kind of a sequence of tastes of the quietness, short periods of time where you're just noticing the quietness of awareness itself. But as you do that, you become more kind of familiar with the experience of having awareness just be aware of itself. And this turns out to be a very good background, very good thing to do. Sometimes we do this at the beginning of the other techniques just to get grounded in the experience of awareness. So keep going, keep looking off to the side of the thoughts, noticing the awareness again. Very good. So what was it like? Obviously, it's quiet. It's kind of peaceful, has a kind of expansive, limitless quality. Were there any problems there? I don't think so. Any conflicts or doubts or emotions? No, it's just simple quietness. It's the one state of being in which problems don't exist, because you have to have two things in order to have a problem. You have to have two things to have conflict. But if you're just experiencing awareness of awareness, then there's only one thing, which is the awareness itself. So there isn't any grief, there isn't any pain of loss. Kind of a nice place to hang out, huh? So, how would you like to have this expansive, peaceful feeling always present in your life? Certainly be better than continuing to suffer pain of loss of grief or any other kind of trauma. So, this process is called Inner Greatness Optimizing, IGO for short. And it's a new applied science that combines the principles from diverse fields, including physics and consciousness. IGO has discovered what causes our inner conflicts and powerful techniques for how to resolve them. It includes training in how to more fully utilize your innate capacity to experience and know things. So IGO removes the barriers to accessing and using much more of your natural brain capacity. So it's a powerful method of solving problems that we could not solve before. So I've already mentioned that it's our avoidance and suppression of feelings that are responsible for making people basically emotionally incompetent. I mean, we live on a planet of emotionally incompetent people. People don't know how to handle their feelings. And so everyone rapidly learns to suppress their feelings because they don't like, in fact, they hate the experience of being emotionally overwhelmed. So here's a little graph. When we're little, turns out that we have a limited number of what are called spindle cells. And so we have a limited capacity to feel things. And because we attempt to suppress it, our innate capacity to feel isn't getting fully utilized. We're only utilizing even lesser amount. Now, when we grow up, we get lots more spindle cells in the frontal lobes, and we have lots more capacity to feel things. But as you can see in the chart, the sort of red block down below, we're still using very, very little of our capacity to feel. And this is due to this deep conditioned habit of suppressing and avoiding painful emotions. So emotional suppression is not emotional competence. In fact, it's the opposite. It tends to accumulate and keep the emotions and clutter up your inner emotional landscape. So I mentioned that emotions have both content and energy, and the content is what the emotion is about, trying to understand it. Shut off the phone so we don't get disturbed. And, trying to figure out what might happen, what might not happen. But the energy is the charge that you feel that gives life to the content. And as I was saying, most people, we've grown up in a psychological world where people focus on the content, attempting to understand. Okay? But understanding is not really that very effective. And with IGO, we focus on resolving the energy, and then the content just flattens out and it's gone. And the beautiful thing is it's gone for good. It's not like suppression. We didn't sweep it under the rug and it's still under there. We got it out from under the rug, resolved it, and now it's really gone. There are 8 pure awareness techniques, and the one we're going to be using tonight is called the IN technique. And this is for resolving the energy of emotional pain very, very thoroughly, as you will see. Now, the 2 main techniques that we use are the IN technique, which is this one on the left. You can see the little red dot about the solar plexus of the drawing, and the OUT technique. The OUT technique, the energy radiates out from the body and creates a kind of cloud or aura all around us. We'll learn that one on another another webinar some other time. We're going to be using the in technique this evening. We may use the out technique on lesson 3. We'll see what actually comes up. But these basically, there are two fundamental kinds of emotions, those that are useful, which are energizing and empowering, things like love, compassion, happiness, joy. Even fear can be useful. You know, you're about to step out in the street and one of these new cars with an electric engine, it comes along and you're not seeing it. So you jump back. That fear is actually good. It actually is useful. It helps save us. So this distinction of useful and not useful is really a better distinction than good or bad. So most of our emotions are unresolved and not useful. They're disruptive, they're depleting, and they have two subcategories. We have the painful internal ones, which are the traumas, like the trauma I had from my PTSD from getting shot. Emotional pain, heartbreak, resentment, grief, all of these things have a kind of tight knot or ball, a constricted feeling inside that we use what we call the in technique to resolve it, which I'm going to teach you shortly. Actually, we're going to learn it as we demonstrate with someone. Then the second category, the out technique energies, these are called reactive or external, and they occur from when we make an expectation and the expectation doesn't get met, then we get upset. We get angry, disappointed, frustrated, sad, depressed, or we project the possibility of a negative outcome onto the future, which creates worry, fear, anxiety, panic attacks, and so forth. That uses a different technique called the out technique, and I'll explain that one another time. We don't want to take too much time for that. Okay, so the in technique, what you do with the in technique is you allow yourself to notice the field of energy that's held in the body. Now, if someone's grieving and they're feeling the loss of the person they love, it's not difficult to notice where the pain is because you definitely feel it. And suppression doesn't work well enough to suppress the pain of the loss and grief. And so there's a tendency to be able to easily find it. And all you have to do is to allow yourself to simply notice the most intense part of the energy of the emotion that's held in the body. Now, why is that? That's because when we had the experience of the person dying and we felt the pain of the loss, is just too painful to process all of that immediately, particularly in light of that we have this deep conditioned habit of suppressing the emotions the moment we even have the threat of having some emotional pain when we start our suppression process. So what you do is you allow yourself to notice the most intense part of the energy of the emotion. That's where the essence of the energy lives, right in the center of the intensity. And what happens as you do that is it will gradually soften. And so you keep doing that. You keep focusing on the central strongest part. Each time it softens, you bring your awareness closer to it. And you keep doing that until there's nothing left to feel. And when there's nothing left to feel, that energy is gone. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't come back. We did a little trauma reduction study with 8 people, put them through a 6-hour class. This was not private sessions. This was just a class where we taught them the techniques, taught them how to do it. This chart shows the reduction in symptoms. The red line is their scores on a 17 symptom PTSD trauma assessment, the self-assessment. The green bar is immediately after the 6 hours of training, and the light blue bar is a week later. And what we found was that we got a 62, almost 63% reduction of the full scope of the trauma symptoms. And a week later, it went down another 10%. Now, it takes about 6 months at the VA to get a 60% symptom reduction. So take your pick, 6 hours or 6 months. And they don't get another 10% a week later, whereas we did. So this was our first trauma reduction study. Okay, so now I'm going to stop the screen share. And what I'd like to do is to go ahead and select someone as our demonstration person for this evening. I'm going to just put this on gallery. And we have a number of people who might be candidates for this demonstration. Um, Kim Quick, you lost it. It was an uncle?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, my sister.
Oh, your sister. Oh, wow. Okay, that's right, your sister. So this was recent, huh?
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks ago.
Okay. There were some other people who were also possible candidates for the demonstration. If there's anyone else who'd like to volunteer who has some immediate grieving situation, um, the reason we might choose someone other than Kim is that Kim is in this program, already knows how to do the techniques. And I would love to see someone who is just new to this and who would like to have some help with the grieving. Anyone in that category? Raise hand again, please, if you'd like to do that. Ah, Susanna Light. Susanna, tell us. Hi, nice to meet you. So, thanks for volunteering. Tell us about your situation. What's the grieving?
It's a little unusual because I'm grieving my own self.
Okay.
Where, like you said earlier, trauma doesn't wear off. So though my dying in a car accident was a long time ago, if I talk about it and that I basically lost my opportunity at a full life because of the injuries, and there's a certain kind of strange joy with having been dead and remembering it. And then there's also a body's tremendous pain and grief with having been dead for a while.
You were dead
And
for a while.
yeah, and it's a strange dichotomy of liberation, but also the ego body agony of having lost my life. But then the injuries, I've never been able to live a full life. So even talking about it last night with someone, just I start crying so hard.
Okay.
So I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, that actually might be a very good candidate. We're going to have two demonstrations. We'll have one tonight and we'll have one on Thursday in the other class. So we have a couple of opportunities. Anyone else a possible candidate for demo? Somebody, we're interested in somebody who's experiencing grief, even if it was from a long time ago, like that woman in New Zealand who, it was 22 years. There was another woman in another training I did, was 26 years, also lost a child like that. It's really quite tragic. So anyone else potential candidate?
Tom, Veronique has her hand up.
Okay. I'm just trying to see where she is. Veronique, hi. Yeah. So you have some grief, dear? Need to.
Yeah, it is. I'm at the moment quite emotional. It is my twin sister. It's kind of an interesting story, but a twin sister in the Netherlands died 2 years ago, and I think I not still fully experienced the grief of both of my parents. I was young.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear in the sound of your voice that just talking about it is painful, huh? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to use the muscle testing technique we use to determine who the best candidates are for this process. So best for us to start with Veronique tonight. Yes. and Susanna on Thursday. Yes, and Kim, we'll get to you. Anyway, we'll get to you as well. We can do that in our ECT group. Okay, so everyone will get a chance. Okay, terrific. So Veronique, let's use you. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to switch to view so that we can see you better. There's me, and there's you. Okay. All right. So the way this will work, Veronique, is I'm going to help you to get in touch with where in your body you're storing the residual pain. It's probably going to be pretty easy because you just think about it, you can feel where it is.
I feel most strongly in my heart.
Sure.
I feel a little bit in my guts. I would say just below the navel.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. But the stronger parts in the chest. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's very simple. The instruction is actually incredibly simple. All you do is close your eyes and you allow yourself to notice that place where you feel the sensation the strongest in your heart, chest area, that there's a field of energy there. And all you have to do is simply notice the field. You don't try to make it go away. You don't try and do anything to it. You just simply allow yourself to notice it. And what you do is you notice the strongest central part of the feeling. Not
Because
the,
actually, honestly, I feel my heart is more feeling like a light, and the thing in my belly, I think that's the place where it is.
okay, the belly feels stronger?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go to the belly then and allow yourself to notice that central strongest part of the sensation. Now, at first, when you start to allow yourself to notice that, it will feel stronger than normal because most of the time you're busy suppressing it and not feeling it. And when you decide to allow yourself to feel it, it's like, whoa, I didn't know there was that much energy there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very intense.
a lot of energy, feels strong. But notice that it doesn't kill you to do that.
All right.
Yeah, it's possible. And in fact, it's not even that difficult. It's just a sensation, even though it feels pretty intense, it's just a sensation. Now, what we're doing as we allow ourselves to feel that sensation is we're engaging, keep your eyes closed throughout the whole thing is a good idea. So we're engaged in the process of beginning to complete the incomplete experience of that traumatic feeling that we've been holding there all this time. And it's probably fair to say that there's a composite energy there of the loss of your twin sister and the losses of your parents, like all sort of one conglomerate energy. Very likely. Now, as you
repeat once more what we're doing.
Yeah, so doesn't matter whether this is your sister or your parents or both. It could very likely it's both because we have a tendency to store this kind of energy in the same place, like in the same file folder, so to speak. Yeah? So as you allow yourself to notice it, it'll feel stronger than normal. But as you continue to just gently, innocently notice it, what will happen is it will gradually start to soften and become less intense.
It's already a lot less.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So each time it gets less, right away, bring your attention closer to it. Now, each time you do that, that'll make it seem stronger, not because it is stronger, it's actually weaker, but it seems stronger just because you're closer to it. But as you do that again and again,
I start feeling almost like I want to cry, but that's where I'm not going. Is that right?
yeah, if you feel to cry, then focus more right into the center of the strongest part of the energy, and immediately the feeling to cry will go away. It's amazing. You feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. The feeling to cry just vanishes. Now, why is that? That's because when you focus on that central strongest part of the energy, you're creating a little bit of separation between you and the sensation. Now, we're deeply in the habit of collapsing into the painful energy and just being overwhelmed by it and crying. I mean, we learn to do that the very first day we're born, right? Get slapped on the bottom when we come out, learn how to cry, been crying ever since. But the problem with crying, there's nothing wrong with crying, but the problem is it doesn't complete the incomplete experience of the energy. It's because we get absorbed in it, lost in it, instead of allowing ourselves to notice it and gradually complete the experience. And you can feel how different it is as you're doing this. Each time you get closer, it gets more soft, it gets softer and softer. And as you keep going, as you get near the end, what will happen, Veronique, is you will start to have the experience change. It'll start to feel like the energy is kind of dissolving, breaking up, a little bit like the fog burning off in the morning sun. And right at the end, it'll dissipate and move away, and there'll be no pain left. It'll just be that quietness that you experienced when we were doing that quietness technique, looking off to the side of the thoughts. Same quietness, but without the pain. So when you reach that point where the energy dissipates and it's gone and there's just the quietness left, then let us know. Take all the time you need, there's no rush.
Yeah, it feels a little bit something differently happened. I feel like a little bit like a block, like a line. Just above navel. And I felt it move a little bit to my lungs.
Yes, yes. It's quite common that we'll tend to store this kind of emotionally painful energy in more than one place in our body. We call it having a backup copy stored on another hard drive.
Yeah, I get really hot when I say express this.
Yeah. So this second place you're experiencing it, and this is the place in the chest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, same thing. We just focus on the central strongest part of the sensation. And as it softens, we get closer to it. I've noticed with grief that it's quite common for people to have at least two places where they've stored the energy of the incomplete, unresolved experience of the emotional pain of the loss. Nice big sigh. That's usually an indication of some letting go. Yeah.
It's kind of very interesting. I'm not sure if it's okay to share here, but my twin sister died, and I actually, it's kind of complicated, a little bit, but I can share it very short. So I was with my twin sister. I met her this lifetime, and I died in the womb, and I could feel that during this session now. I felt myself as being dead in the womb.
Wow.
And I was born in a new family, and I met her before I moved to Hawaii. I met her in the Netherlands, and we had the strongest connection. And like just a year or two before she passed away, she knew I was the twin sister. So we talked about it. I cried the heavens out of my body.
Sure.
I get chills right now sharing this. This is
Yeah.
so incredible. So I experienced both in this one session.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. It's incredible.
So
Yeah, so
now the energy feels like it's gone.
I maybe it needs to integrate a little bit more. I feel my whole body's very hot, but I feel definitely a big release.
Wonderful.
There's still a little bit in my chest.
Okay,
heart, lungs.
let's make sure we clean it all up. Let's go back there, and the little bit in your chest, click in really close, do that Google Maps thing, get really close to it, and allow yourself to feel right into the center of the strongest part of the energy field, whatever's left of it. We want to be very thorough, complete, because the good that you feel already, that'll be amplified even more when it's really totally gone. Those big sighs are always a good indication that something's really being released.
I think I am at a point of a very, of a very gentle tenderness, like very warm, like I'm hold and.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Great job. Now, I'm going to use what's called muscle testing to test and make sure we got it all. Okay, so Veronique completed the incomplete experience of the pain of loss of her, quote, twin sister. Yes, this has been done thoroughly. Yeah, is something we missed? No. Good job, dear. Good job.
Oh, wow.
Good job.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now we're gonna do something we call a provocation test. We want to make sure that you really experienced that you got it all. So I want you to talk a little bit about this twin sister of yours. Tell us about her and how it feels to think about her now.
She was somehow quite different. I had a very strong connection with her when I was on the phone with her. Always a whale jumped out of the ocean, or we saw animals like birds flying high, circling the sky, or there was always something magical. And yeah,
how does it feel to think about her now? Do you still feel some pain of the loss?
At the moment, I feel a lot of love in my heart. Yeah. Wow, this is very
Isn't that
impressive.
fantastic?
This is very, very impressive.
Excellent.
Wow.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good job here. Really good job. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Terrific.
so much.
You're very,
Mm.
very welcome. You know, this didn't take long, and we've been less than an hour. Susanna, if you'd like to go ahead and do it tonight, we could do a second round here. Would you be up for that?
Sure, let's go.
Yeah. Based on what you've just seen, it's kind of encouraging, huh?
I did a session tonight with Sabrina. Should I do 2 in one day?
Oh, I don't think that's a problem. Did you get rid of the pain of your grief with her?
No, we're working on something else.
Oh, if you work on something else, should be no problem.
Okay.
No problem at all. Optimal for us to do. Yeah, it feels right to me. Intuitively feels right to me. We should go for it, huh? Why not?
Sure.
So you have a very interesting kind of grief, the grief of yourself and the loss of your ability to have a full life. So this is a very, very interesting one. I haven't done one exactly like that before, but hey, I'm up for it.
Okay.
Great.
It's always been, it was 30 years ago, actually.
Wow.
And it's always been very traumatic. Like now I just
I'm sure.
feel and tremendous pain coming up from my heart center to my throat, and it gets tight.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So I think there's some body memory of what happened to my body in the accident.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, just like we did with Veronique, what I'd like you to do is to sit comfortably and close your eyes and just think about this loss of your capabilities that you had and how limiting this has been for your life. And I'm sure there's been a lot of sadness associated with that. It's been a painful process to have to live with that. As you think about it, can you feel the pain of that loss in your body?
Yes.
Where do you feel it?
There's it's hard to describe because it's so big. It's like if I was in a submarine or something, I was going deeper and deeper in the ocean, and the pressure got harder and harder and harder and harder. That's how my body feels. And then the pain in the throat gets tighter and tighter and tighter.
Okay.
And in the accident, that was damaged and collapsed. And
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So as you notice that area, that's the most painful part is in the throat, upper chest and throat?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. In that area, what you're feeling is a whole field of sensation. Yeah. And in that field, there's a place where the energy is the most concentrated, the strongest. Now, normally we don't allow ourselves to go there. We try to avoid it. Right? But if you allow yourself to feel it, you'll notice that even though it makes it feel more intense to allow yourself to feel it, that it's still possible. It's just a sensation. Although it be a powerful one, it's just a sensation. Yeah?
Yeah.
Doesn't kill you to do it.
No, it's very painful.
Yes, it's very painful. So now, the most painful part of the energy typically is right in the center of the field. And what I'd like you to do is to allow yourself to notice it, but observe it from a little bit of a distance. Don't allow yourself to be sucked into it and collapse into it and overwhelmed. Keep a little bit of a distance and just focus right into the center of the strongest part of it. Now, this is going to make it feel stronger than normal because normally you're trying to avoid feeling it like that. That's our deep conditioning of suppression and avoidance. Everybody has that. But as you allow yourself to feel it, you'll notice that it's really not that difficult. It's good to keep your eyes closed throughout the whole thing. Yeah. And so as you allow yourself to feel it, it will gradually start to soften and become less intense. When that happens, let us know. Getting a little softer?
Very little.
Sorry?
A very little softer.
Just a little bit softer. That's okay.
It's
So
not a sharp pain.
not
It's
a
kind of it's kind of warm.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes.
So it's changing. That's exactly what we want. So you're in the process of beginning to complete the incomplete experience of the energy that's held there that was just way too much to process when it happened. It has been seemingly way too much to process ever since. So you've been avoiding doing that, which is just, everyone has that conditioning. It's quite common. So as you allow yourself to feel it, it will become a little softer. And when it becomes a little softer, bring your awareness even a little closer to it. Not too close that it's overwhelming, but just close enough that you can really feel it. And when you do that, and you just innocently continue to notice the central, strongest part of the energy, it will gradually soften some more. See, every situation in life has two basic parts to it. There's what happened, and then there's our reaction to what happened. And the part we're dealing with, the event was long ago. It's long gone. But what's left has been the reaction is still there. And this is what we're resolving, is the reaction. And it's the reaction that causes the suffering. Now, don't collapse into it. Don't collapse into it. Just go ahead and keep your attention right into the center of the strongest part. If it feels like you're going to get overwhelmed by it, then just back up a little bit. Get the distance just right, which means close enough that you can really feel it, but not so close that you get overwhelmed. Now you look like you're about to collapse into it and start to cry. So rather than do that, focus right into the central, strongest part of the energy. The moment you focus on the central, strongest part, the feeling like you're going to cry will just, amazingly, it'll just stop. See that?
It's just hard to find.
Yeah. So usually you don't have to find it. It kind of like stands up and waves its arm and say, hey, pay attention over here.
It was too big.
That's okay. It doesn't matter if it's big. It still has a part of it where the energy feels more intense than elsewhere, kind of typically right in the center. That looks better. Now, don't worry about how long it takes. Don't try and make it go away or do anything to it. Just innocently notice that central strongest part. And it'll gradually get easier and easier as it softens. Each time it gets softer, get a little closer, but there's no rush, just a little bit closer. That'll make it subjectively feel stronger, but it's actually weaker already.
I feel like
Yeah, the 3-year-old.
I'm hearing the primal scream now.
Okay. So,
It's really loud.
okay. So you may hear screams, you may hear voices, you may hear thoughts, but we're interested in the energy, the sensation of the feeling. And we want to keep our attention pretty much on the sensation. As best we can. You're doing very well. Now, we can't do anything about the limitations that occurred from your incident, but what we can do is we can stop the reaction of the suffering that that's caused. And it's much better to live without the suffering, and that way you can actually handle, how you handle your limitations much better. When the suffering part, the reaction part is gone, then you can just be present to what is.
I feel it. It's like evening out.
It's easing up?
Yeah, it's like evening out. Like
Evening out. Okay, yeah, I didn't know, just evening out. Excellent. This is good. That sort of spreading out is what one of the kinds of experiences you can have as you are in the process of completing the incomplete energy that's been held there.
yeah, it's spread everywhere. In
That's
more places.
right.
In my body.
Spreads out.
And that's what I mean by evening. Like it's less intense in the throat, but it's spreading to my chest.
Exactly. The spreading out is part of the process of it sort of dissipating and becoming less intense. That's very good. You're doing it just right. Just continue to get closer as it gets softer.
It's weird. I get this occasional seizures of shivers.
Yeah, that's different aspects of the energy of the sensation that are being released as you're doing this completion process. So you're doing just fine. Of course, anyone else who's also got some grief can certainly follow along with our process. There's nothing wrong with that. And begin to complete the incomplete experience for you.
I feel like even though it's increased, the breath is easier.
Breathing is easier. Excellent. This is a good sign.
Even though it's kind of hyperventilating, sort of.
Yeah.
It's just like running and breathing heavy, but it's at least I'm breathing smooth.
Breathing smoother. Okay. Very good. So continue to put your attention right into the center of the strongest remaining part of the energy. Again, not trying to do anything to it or make it go away, just simply noticing it.
It's interesting. It's like the central intensity is easier. Like I can talk now.
Yeah.
But the external, what do you call it? The
Spread out.
peripheral feeling, like the intense whiplash from it. It's so tight right now. It's just almost feels like there's no reason to be doing this to myself. But I'm feeling like this is easier and it's spread out.
Yeah. So if you just continue focusing on the central, and getting a little closer.
Now I'm feeling that I'm dead. Like that cold rigor mortis feeling of my body's dead.
Wow, amazing. And
I
yet,
felt it before, but it's really intense right now.
yeah, and yet you're talking, you're not dead.
Oh yeah, huh?
It's a giveaway. She's not dead. This coldness is
How does that work?
this coldness is another aspect of the traumatic energy. Just go to the place where it feels the most cold.
Yeah, it's like shivering and Arctic.
Yeah, yeah. Go to the place where it's the most Arctic, the most cold. And just allow yourself to notice it. Again, don't try and do anything to it. Don't try and warm it up. Nothing like that. Just notice it. And gradually, this cold feeling is going to dissipate and gradually go away.
Yeah, it feels like there's no end. It'll never stop.
Yeah, when you're first doing this, it's quite common to have this feeling like, oh, this is never going to be over. But it turns out that the energy that's held there is finite. It's not endless. Veronique can tell you. Yeah, when she was feeling into it, there was a point where she also felt, oh my God, will this ever be over? Right? And it will be. The reality is it will be.
Yeah. It moved at some point
It moved.
into my belly, like the dantian, like a pinpoint.
Yeah,
It's
that's in.
pinpointed there.
I know what
And
you
all the tension is around it, outside of it, but it's really like clear inside.
Okay.
But all the tension is just enormous, like around, like a shell.
Yeah.
And my stomach is agitated, like getting like the stomach acids are coming up.
Okay.
Like I want to vomit kind of feeling. I feel like it's moving into something else older than the actual accident. And now that shell is dissipating. Wow,
Okay. Okay.
that's cool.
Continue to simply, gently, innocently notice the central strongest part, wherever it is.
Now the center moved from here.
Yeah.
It moved to my
To the
tummy.
diaphragm. Yeah, that's fine.
One of the tummy, like right in the center, when it's just like all of a sudden this acid's like building up and wanting to come out.
Right.
It's like right in the center of the stomach.
Yeah. So just notice the central strongest part of that sensation.
Yeah, the tension's coming back, but it's different. It's like for a different reason or something. And I just want to die. My brain is just, I want to die. I just want to die. It's really strong. I know that's words. So let's see. I
Right. So rather
stay
than
with the center, go back to the center, right?
yeah, rather than get absorbed in the content about it, the wanting to die stuff, just
Yeah.
keep your attention focused right into the center of whatever the strongest part of the sensation that's left.
I can feel the tears. It's strange. I don't know where they came from.
Rather than cry, focus into the central strongest part of the energy, and immediately the feeling to cry will stop.
No, it's just tears, not the feeling of crying. Maybe it's from earlier, like leaking out,
Yeah, it's okay.
but
No problem.
feeling it on my cheeks. I felt something real in my tummy, like a creature.
Mm. As you continue to just bring your awareness closer to whatever the remaining strongest part of the energy field is, you'll go through a whole range of experiences as you are doing. Okay?
Mm.
Various different aspects of the energy, cold, acid, various levels of intensity. As you were saying, the periphery seemed to be sort of starting to fade away. So
Now it's more central.
yeah, so now we want to continue to focus right into the center of the strongest central part of that. And again, not trying to do anything to it, not trying to force it or make it go away, but just continuing to simply allow the experience of it to be there, because that's the process of completing something that's been incomplete for all this time.
It did this funny bounce. Throat, tummy, throat. And it's landing in the center of my chest.
Okay, so that part right in the center, if that's the strongest part, go there.
Okay.
And again, just innocently, gently notice it. And it will gradually soften some more. And when it does, you can get a little closer.
Mm.
You're doing great, Susanna. Doing really great.
Mm.
You're learning to do something that's the opposite of what you've been doing for all these years. You've been trying to avoid feeling it. Now you're allowing yourself to feel it. And that's exactly what your body wants you to do. Because it wants to be free of this. And it knows the only way to do that is for you to complete the incomplete experience of that energy you're holding there. So you're doing it just right, and it's working. All I got to do is hang in there, go the distance, and it's going to be gone.
The cold is back.
What's that?
The cold is back.
The cold is back. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
okay.
it's interesting because the room is cold and I've left it like that so I don't feel sleepy. But the cold is coming from the inside, deep inside.
Yeah. That's a different kind of,
Rigidness, yeah.
different kind of cold. So focus right into the central, strongest, coldest part of the energy.
Mm. It's like a feeling I've never felt before.
Okay, what is that?
Mm. Mm. The tightness is back, but it's totally different. It's more like if there's a pole or something, like from here all the way down to my
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
my root chakra,
Like
my
a kind of
root,
follow.
my,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
into like the pelvic floor, just like
Yeah.
a column of.
Now notice that in that column of energy, in there, there's also a place where where the sensation is stronger than elsewhere. Again, typically it's kind of in the central part. But that can mean different things when it's like that. So just allow yourself to be drawn to the central, strongest part of the sensation, wherever that is, and continue to just simply notice it. You're doing great, by the way, just great.
Yeah, but it's not a point like other things have been. It's really big.
It's not a point.
Really big now, like.
Right. And even in that really big energy, there's a place where it's stronger than elsewhere, typically toward the center.
Okay. I'm fine. I just found complete emptiness. Just poof. It all just poof.
Oh, wow.
I'm tripping out. It's like I hit the empty in the center of that center.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
It's scary too at the same time, but it's
Oh,
also
I can imagine.
such a relief.
Let's check it out. This is now, so think about the whole incident and see if you still feel any of this pain of loss. It might feel strange to not feel.
It's like I'm going through the timeline.
Sorry?
It's like I've been doing that a lot lately. So it's like I'm going through the timeline and kind of like this spreadsheet,
Huh.
you know, accident, death, damage, pain, loss of my capability for life, trauma, PTSD.
Yeah, when you think about all of that now,
Coming to this, it's like, okay, it's like a checklist, like, okay,
yeah.
that happened. And now I come back to the here now, and the here now kind of like salvation a little bit, like I'm being saved. Almost like I know that's like a negative connotation. Of course,
No, that's great.
but it doesn't feel like that. And that the tension is coming back, but it's not as big. It's smaller, thinner line.
Excellent, excellent. That means it's almost gone. What we want to do is that little part of it that still remains is we want to do exactly the same thing. We want to make sure we're very thorough and complete with this process, okay? So that little bit that's left, notice that that remaining part of it has a central, strongest part to it. Put your attention right into the center of that and just gently notice it.
Yeah, it's resisting, and now it's growing back the way it was before. But maybe not quite as intense.
Probably not.
It has this feeling like it's coming right back. Like I had a moment of poof, and now it's coming back.
Okay, so that's why we're doing this little sort of provocation test of thinking about the whole situation again to make sure that when we get it completed, that it's really completed. And it's sounding like there's a little bit more to do. So go ahead and come back to the central, strongest part of the energy and just gently notice it. And let's see what happens.
Now my mind is really trying to take over.
So that can certainly happen. And again, we want to be focused on the sensation, not the thoughts.
It's like a real force, like a tug of war.
So no need to be in any conflict about it. We're simply noticing the area of the energy that remains where it feels the most concentrated or strongest. That's all we're doing. Very, very simple.
Now I'm just having childhood memories.
I'm sure you have many memories associated with this whole thing. But again, our focus is on if there's any residual energy left, we want to have our attention right into the center of whatever's left. Still some sensation there?
It's lessened a lot.
Lessened a lot.
Yeah, I don't feel that like rod like feeling.
That's,
Now it's just my body.
yeah.
The tension is more like a normal tension, not like an intense
Oh, that's
impossible tension. It's like,
hmm,
when I talk about the tension, it increases a little bit, but not like it was.
that's good. So there's still a little bit of energy left. Yeah. So go ahead and allow for the process of completion to be very thorough.
Feels like it'll take all night.
That's actually going pretty well, pretty quick.
And now I'm kind of resting in my tummy, like a basket.
Okay. A little bit of energy left in the basket.
And now more like curling up in there.
Oh, okay.
Like,
That's
wow.
that sounds pretty good. Is it sort of comfortable?
Um, it's a little scary as it feels like curled up in the basket in my belly and all this stuff's out here. But being in the basket in my belly is safe.
Is it kind of a protected sort of feeling?
Maybe more supported and nurtured.
Supported.
Like there's no protection. It's just all around me,
Right.
around the edges of the basket. There's no shield or anything protecting. I'm just there.
Okay.
Like kind of
Just there.
exposed. But like that exposure, like it can't touch me. It's like an invisible wall of all this stuff around me.
Hmm. So if you had a number like on a scale of 0 to 10
Mm.
of the intensity of the feeling when we started,
Mm.
what would it have been? Like maybe it was
I want to say 0,
no, when
but there's
we started, what was it?
mm,
What was it when we
oh,
10?
like a 20.
Oh, 20, okay. 20 on a scale of 10, right? And how is it? What is it now?
And now it's like a 2 or a 1, but it's more like the ache of having been so tight is taking a while to dissipate.
No, this is
But the tightness isn't there anymore.
exactly what's happening. You know when you get a cramp in a muscle,
Mm-hmm.
cramp in your
Oh
calf,
yeah,
and then when the cramp goes away, there's still a while where there's a sensation there. That's
yeah.
the tissues have actually been gnarled and contorted from the tension that's held there. When that energy's gone, it takes a little while for that tissues to kind of normalize themselves, right? And you expressed it just like that. So that's what's happening. The muscle test confirms it. So actually, the traumatic energy that was causing all of this problem, that part is now completed and gone. Hey, good, good. This is good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And now this other part will just normalize on its own. And look, she's smiling. This is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like there's more layers
Well,
to a different onion. Yeah.
there may be. And there may be other emotions that are related to this. Certainly, there have been, lots of other emotions over this period of time where you've had all these limitations. But I think you got the fundamental energy completed, and it's muscle testing that you did. So congratulations, good job.
Thank you.
You're so
That was amazing. It's easier to talk and breathe.
okay. Very good.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Susanna. That was great.
Thank you.
And you can give us both you and Veronique can give us a report when you come back to second class on Thursday. We'd love to hear how the time in between has been for you. Very, very good. Okay. And Kim, we can certainly do your demo on Thursday. And if you want it actually before that, I'm okay with that too. You can just give me a holler.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, because I know you're, just a few weeks and being a sister, that's going to be a pretty intense one. Yeah. And
Yeah, I've been working through it.
yeah, I'll bet you have. That's great. Yeah, it's wonderful. Kim already been doing these techniques for several months now, and so she's got a lot of self-sufficiency and been working on it. So very good. Well, I wanted to just mention a little bit more. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint here for a moment. Yeah, I just wanted to mention our next class is Thursday, April 29th. It'll be at 5:30 Pacific, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. And that's basically it for the PowerPoint. I'm extremely grateful to Veronique and for Susanna for volunteering to be the demo people. And I'm delighted that you've had such a liberating experience from this suffering and trauma that you've had. So it'll be wonderful to Susanna saying, what just happened? What just happened is you completed some incomplete traumatic experience and now that's gone. The nice thing about that is that part of it, if it's not the whole thing, if it was the whole thing, it's gone for good. This is permanent. So you're going to feel much better over the coming days, and we'll look forward to getting a report from you and Veronique on Thursday as to how you're doing. So, Martha, did you have something you want to ask? No, you were, no, okay, great. So I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you so much. And let me just put it on gallery so I can see everybody. There we go. Now I can see everyone. So thank you so much for being here. And we're going to have the recording available. Let me encourage you to invite your friends, anyone who's either grieving or if they know somebody who's grieving, invite them to come on Thursday. We can do, another couple of demonstrations. And this is a wonderful new development for the whole field of relieving grief. Interestingly enough, when you think about it, the loss that people feel is not so much the loss of the person as the loss of the story of that they felt they were just assuming that person was going to continue to be in their life. And so the loss is actually not the loss of the person, it's the loss of the story. And the thing is, we become attached to and identified with the story because, it's just natural to think, oh, life's just going to continue the way it's been. But when we lose that, it feels like we're losing part of ourself because we've become so identified with the story that person's going to continue to be in our life. And it's the story we become identified with, actually, not the person. And that's why when the traumatic pain is gone, it doesn't feel like we've lost the person. In fact, we just feel the love for the person. It's quite common. Yeah. Veronique, I think you probably can tell. You feel that? Yeah, you feel the love for the person.
I loved her before because, of course, it was my sister. But yeah. I think something for me something really opened up. Something big happened for sure.
Wonderful. So happy. That's really great. Really great. Susan, yeah, great. Susanna's laughing and smiling as well. Okay, this was great. Thank you all so much for being here with me. We will have the recording available. And if you'd like to have the recording, let's see what to do. I think you can, you can drop me a note and my email, tomstonehse@gmail.com. If you'd like to get access to the recording, we'll make it an unlisted one up on YouTube and everyone who's interested can take a look. So thank you all so much. Actually, I'll just send that. I'll send the recorded link out to everybody. And that way, if you want to see it, fine. If not, you just have the recording link. So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. Thank you again so much for being here. And we'll see you on Thursday. All the best.
Thanks, Tom.